Okay, well, hello. So I'm Henry Lewis, and this is Jonathan Sayer. We're delighted to be talking to you guys on this TDF kind of Q&A to talk a little bit about our new show. But first of all, a little introduction. So I'm Henry Lewis. I'm a sort of a large white guy with short brown hair and a beard. I'm wearing a blue T-shirt. I'm sitting in my apartment in New York.
My name is Jonathan Sayer, and I'm a short white guy, kind of quite wiry, very dark hair, and I'm wearing a cream turtleneck, roller neck, I think you call it out in the States. And I'm in my apartment as well, which is it's a temporary apartment, so it's kind of, very very nondescript, very nice, but very nondescript. I've got a bit of weird art on the wall behind me, which is kind of 3 circles. And a lamp, and that's about it. That's the furniture that I own here.
Very good. So we're here in New York doing a show called Mind Mangler: A Night of Tragic Illusion. It's a comedy show and a comedy magic show, or comedy mind reading show, I suppose, more specifically. And there's just 3 people in it, and John and I are 2 of those people, and also 2 of the 3 writers. So yeah, I play the mind mangler, who's a kind of down on his luck magician who's going through a divorce and is sort of struggling to get his career back together. And you see his show complete with lots of real magic, but not always the trick that the mind mangler is intending to perform. And John, why don't you tell us who you play?
I play Steve, who is a friend of the mind mangler, and I've been roped into the evening to basically pretend to be various audience members. So I'm an audience plant, but I play about 3 to 4 different audience members, each with a different name. And there's loads of really fun stuff about me not quite understanding which audience member I'm supposed to be and which routine I'm in, and whether I'm supposed to be hypnotized or whether I'm supposed to be doing a Ouija board, whether I'm supposed to be thinking of a card. So I kind of I'm supposed to help the mind mangler, but I kind of ruin the evening for him in many, many ways. But then there's a nice story within the whole show that's kind of about our relationship and about friendship and how they both kind of, either it depends how you see it. Either they're really close friends and they need each other, or they're kind of horribly mutually dependent on one another. But there's a nice kind of heartwarming story to it.
We're having a blast doing the show, and it's at New World Stages, currently booking until the 2nd of March. So if you want to come and see it, please do come down. But enough of the sales pitch. It's now time to answer some of your questions. Yeah. So the first question we got here, Mind Mangler: A Night of Tragic Illusion is an offshoot of Mischief Theatre's Magic Goes Wrong. Absolutely right. How did this spin-off come about? John, why don't you tell us about that?
Well, we just really liked the characters. I think that Hen has always had a huge love for playing the Mind Mangler. And we found that because the nature of magic means it comes in little sections, we were often doing like little guest slots, doing little parts of the show. And we just started talking about other scenarios that character could be in, or indeed both of the characters could be in. If they had their own show, what other acts would they try and do? Because in Magic Goes Wrong, there was one kind of scene where the mind mangler would kind of read people's minds, like guessing playing cards and working out their jobs and stuff. It was all very silly. And we kind of started to work out, what other things would he do? And we just thought there was so much really, really funny stuff there. I think one of the really useful things when you're doing anything that's in some way in the goes wrong world is finding an act or a performance style that takes itself really, really seriously. And then it's really fun to kind of undercut and play with. And I think just the Mind Mangler in general really ticked that box and felt like this is kind of bottomless as a character, and also as a kind of goes wrong genre to unpick.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Yes, very good.
Next
question. I think that really answers that. Yes, very good.
I'll read this one and then you can answer. Okay. Mind Mangler debuted in the UK. Have you made any changes to the feats or jokes for an American audience?
Good question. So yeah, we have made a few changes. Yeah, I mean, I think it was something we've been talking about a lot. I think the character is something of a kind of I wouldn't call, well, I mean, I hesitate to use the word loser because I think there are positive aspects to him, but I think that he's definitely not one of life's winners.
He's
And
one of life's underdogs.
He's an underdog, yes, he is. But I think that distinction has been important. I think that in the UK, somehow, I think people are more comfortable with the idea of laughing at someone or with someone because of their kind of because of their failings a bit. I think we're able to sort of, I don't know, I think in the UK people step outside it a bit more and view it with a slightly more kind of a different lens, I think. And so some of the jokes that are about his failings, I think, don't work quite as well here. So we've changed a few of those to sort of soften it slightly. I think we were talking a lot about the difference between the UK and the American versions of The Office. And the UK version is more hard-edged. There are moments where David Brent, who's the kind of boss character, the equivalent of Michael Scott, is kind of he fails more. He causes more embarrassing moments that are almost kind of slightly painful to watch. And I think there's less appetite for seeing people kind of really suffer in a sort of comedic way. So I think it's been about adjusting that slightly, so that he's still a bit kind of down on his luck, but he's not kind of really embarrassing himself, and so that we're not being too kind of. I think some of what plays kind of as quite funny, kind of ironic in the UK, just plays a bit mean here, and so those have been the changes that we've made.
So in the past, the changes we've made to shows have been incredibly small. I mean, to be honest, the changes here are still small, but in the past they've been just the change of a word because the vernacular is different in the US to the UK. Whereas here, I think where it lies is that US audiences are much more supportive to the characters. I find like UK audiences are really comfortable letting a character have a very unpleasant moment in a comedy show. Whereas here, the audience is maybe a little bit more keen to come to their rescue. So it's been about kind of, which I think is just, they want to be there for the character, which is really lovely. So it's been trying to find moments where the audience can support the Mind Mangler / Keith on his journey, which has been really fun. And I think actually we've found some really nice changes that enrich the comedy and make it a funnier show because of that.
Absolutely. Did either of you or your co-writer Henry Shields have any experience with magic or mentalism before creating these shows?
Well, that's definitely a question for you, Hen, because you're a huge magic fan.
I was a magic fan, yeah, very much so as a kid. I mean, not sort of professional experience, but I used to, as a kid, be very, very much sort of interested in magic. I mean, I was actually in the sort of young magic circle. I did a competition they did, and actually also in the competition was a guy called Ben Hart, who ended up being our magic consultant. We didn't realize when he came on board that was a kind of connection that we had. So we sort of weirdly kind of knew each other from when we were sort of teenagers. So it was sort of fun to kind of to discover that the world of magic being a small world. But yeah, no. So I've always kind of been a fan. So it was fun for me to kind of learn some new kind of tricks and get to do a magic show. It was fun for sure.
When we were at drama school and we were just getting to know each other in our first year, so this was what, 15 years ago now? Is that about?
Yeah.
When we started, Hen used to have a poster on his wall, I think, of Houdini. Is that so? That shows what a huge magic fan Hen was. For me, it's been a very new journey into the world of magic, and it's such an interesting world. It's such an interesting world, and I think one of the things that I'm really proud of in the show is that it's very, very funny, like hopefully like all Mischief shows, but there is genuinely magic that goes right and magic that will amaze you. The end of the first act is a particularly good trick where the mind reader delves into people's secrets that they have to write in a bowl. And Hen does a bit of genuine mentalism, which I think is very, very cool and very impressive.
Mm. Yes, very good. Definitely real magic in the show, for sure.
Many tricks go wrong in Mind Mangler. Immediately contradicting. Some tricks go right, though, but many tricks do go wrong in Mind Mangler. Has anything ever truly gone wrong in the show, and did the audience notice? There was a very funny incorrect sound cue last night in the show. At the beginning of the second act, But no, has anything ever really gone wrong? Can you think of anything?
I'm sure there is something. Yeah, I'd have to rack my brains. I think has there been any kind of? I don't think there's been any kind of like. Oh well, I suppose we had. So in the show, in the show when we were doing it in the UK, there's a trick in the second act where during the interval or intermission, people mix up a Rubik's cube and place it into this kind of grid of Rubik's cubes. And so we have like 100 Rubik's cubes all kind of piled up in this big frame, and we do a whole thing with it, and then there's a pattern that's revealed in the middle. It's a whole trick, and then the table gets wheeled off stage, and it tipped over in the wings, and 100 Rubik's cubes came crashing down, or not in the wings quite. It was still on stage, came crashing down to the floor. It was the loudest crash I've ever heard. So that was quite a big disaster. So I think people definitely noticed that. Yes,
you certainly did. I have a goes wrong story that no one would have known, and thankfully, I managed to avoid the disaster that could have been. But because I'm playing audience members, most of my entrances, if not all my entrances, are from the auditorium or from the orchestra. And we were touring the show in a place called Newcastle in the northeast of England. Huge theatre. And there wasn't a very, for one of the entrances where I needed to be on the other side of the theatre without anyone noticing I was there, there wasn't a pass door. So the best way it was decided for me to get there was to leave via stage door, run round the front of the building, go through the foyer, and enter that way. And on one of the shows, I ran round, and the way it would work is that the usher, one of the front of house team, would let me in from the foyer door, and they didn't arrive. They'd vanished, and I was very aware that my cue was really soon, and I was literally running around the theatre like in that movie Birdman, except for thankfully I had some clothes on, like banging on the fire exits, banging on the foyer, and eventually, thankfully, on the very last second, someone let me in. They'd forgotten about our pact that they would let me into the venue, and I literally ran and heard my cue and burst onto the stage, looking probably quite frazzled. But that was an awful moment. I remember being just absolutely terrified that I wasn't going to make it on, and I was just locked outside.
We had another show in Liverpool where we had to stop the show.
Oh yeah.
So our company manager came on stage and sort of said, "Oh, we've got to stop for a second." I said, "Okay, hang on, we're going to stop for a second." And I left through the curtains, and I said, "Oh, what's happened? Why have we got to stop?" And he said, "Oh, the lighting box is on fire." And I said, "What?" And he said, "They tried to continue, but the fire is now too large to continue." So basically what had happened, we had these follow spots up at the top of the theatre in a little booth, and there's two people operating follow spots to light us on the stage. And one of the bulbs had blown, and a small fire had been caused. And but they tried. What was hilarious was they had tried to carry on. They tried to continue doing the show with one of the lights on fire, but apparently the smoke became so much they had to leave the booth, and that was when they called it. So they didn't stop the show when the fire began. They only stopped the show when there was too much smoke in the lighting box.
Dedication, real dedication to keeping going.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, we had a brief stoppage. They cleared the smoke, and obviously put out the fire, and then we resumed at the Liverpool Empire. Very good. What's our next question? There's lots of audience interaction in my Mangler. What are the most amusing exchanges you've had? Oh, good question.
Michelle was up there last night. There was a woman called Michelle in the audience last night, who. So there's a bit where the audience, Hen does a bit of mind reading. It's a kind of comic moment, and they have to write down numbers and colours and things on this piece of paper. And she had an answer for everything that just kind of wrong-footed you, but in a really funny, in the spirit of the show way. Like it was like you kind of couldn't have scripted more amusingly unhelpful responses. So she had to choose a number between 1 and 5. She chose pi. So if you get called up, don't choose pi now because it's been done. But it was very funny because you've not had that before. Like she did non-English words. It was just very funny. So she was quite good. There was what was the guy last week who was a professor of he was a professor of a very particular kind of carbon.
Yeah, he specialised in manganese,
Manganese.
the chemical element manganese, and he was a professor of manganese, and that was we talked to the audience a lot about their jobs, about the different things they do. As John mentioned, we have this section where we explore the audience members' secrets. So when you arrive at the show, you can write down a secret of yours that you have onto a card. We put them in a bowl, and we then choose out a name, and I try and work out what the secret is. And they're always different, and it's always amazing. We always find out stuff about our audiences. I remember there was a show in the UK, a couple of great ones. We had a woman whose secret was that she had a horse's hoof in her bag. That was fantastic, and she took it out and showed everyone that she did have a horse's hoof in her bag. It was very weird. We had someone who, we had someone in the West End who their secret was that they wanted their boyfriend to propose to them, so they'd gone through his phone and searched for engagement rings to kind of like affect his algorithm of what adverts.
The ads like tracked him around, being like, it's time to ask the question, or that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And there were, various other ones. We had someone who was running for it in a general election and panicked on election day and voted for a different party, even though they were the candidate. That was quite funny. So yeah, lots of different fun stuff.
A really cool thing about the show as well is it's a bit like a choose your own adventure book, in the sense that the information we get from the audience at the beginning kind of runs through the show. So people's jobs and little things that people say take on a life of their own as the show goes on, which is really, really fun. And it means that every night, although the show is most certainly a scripted, quite tightly choreographed show, there's these little pockets that allow for improvisation and allow for the show to go a little bit off the rails. And there's a few little moments where Hen and myself can kind of challenge each other based on what the audience has said and try and wrong foot each other. So the audience interactions and what the audiences say in this particular show make a huge difference to actually what the show ends up being on that night.
My favorite job actually that we ever had was someone said that in the UK, someone said they were a parish administrator. Parish being like, I don't know if that's the same here, but like a village. And a parish administrator. And I said, well, what does the parish administrator do? And she said, I keep the vicar under control. That's a good job. Very good. What's our next question? What are your tricks for not breaking character on stage? And have you ever just cracked up? I don't know if there's any tricks. I think that you obviously, as you do the jokes more and more, you get used to them and you know what's coming, and so it therefore becomes easier not to laugh at the jokes, once you've kind of rehearsed the show and you kind of know what's coming. But obviously, there's sometimes it's usually the moments where different stuff happens, or something that doesn't normally happens. That's often the moments where it can be most tempting to laugh. There's a moment in the show where John hypnotizes me, character hypnotizes me to become an animal, and that's always different. And that sometimes I'm sometimes on stage doing something so absurd.
Last night I cracked up. Last night I lost it. Hen had to become a seductive pterodactyl, and it's one of it will live with me forever. It was one of the most ridiculous, huge performances I've ever seen in my life, and I couldn't keep it in check at all. Like I really, like there's like almost like I feel like that. I know that you guys call it breaking here. I feel like there's two different versions of breaking. There's like the kind of one where you break a little bit, but then you're on top of it. You smirk briefly, but then you're straight back in. And then there's the one where you just lose it, and you're just kind of laughing as if you're just at home, and or you're in the audience. And last night I couldn't. It rarely happens, but I couldn't control myself last night. It was so very funny. Yes, last night is the answer for me.
Yeah, we had. Here we go. No.
It came up, then it's gone. It's back. For Magic Goes Wrong, you worked with world-renowned illusionists, Penn and Teller. We did. What was the coolest thing they taught you? Oh, God. Loads of stuff. Like this is less a specific answer to that, and more just what I thought was awesome about them was just how kind of open-hearted they were, and how open they were about even some of their kind of most famous cool tricks that they're very guarded about. They just kind of totally led us into their world and submerged us, and I'll always be very grateful for that, because it was just like going to super cool magic school in like this really like, yeah, it was phenomenal, so interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I mean, my favorite, because a few of the when we did Magic Goes Wrong, a few of the tricks were kind of were new. A few were kind of from the kind of I don't know, I guess the kind of public domain kind of canon of magic. There's lots of kind of old tricks that are kind of just out there that lots of people do. And there's a few like that are kind of staples. And then there's a few which are from their kind of collection of routines that they've worked on over the years. And there was the closing of Act One is their version of sawing someone in half, the sort of classic, but they've got very much their own take on it, and it's a version they've done. I think they did it. I think they did a spot on America's Got Talent where they did it, where I think lots of people saw it there, and it's a really fantastic thing. They bring on this big sort of setup, this big box, big power saw, and they show you how they do the trick. They sort of take off the front of the box, and you see there's enough room for the person to kind of slide down inside the box to avoid getting hit by the blade as the big sort of spinning blade goes through. And they show that there's a safety pin beneath the blade, so the blade can't go down too far. And they accidentally remove the safety pin, and the blade goes all the way through this person in the box. And so you sort of get the sawing in half twice. And it sort of was like a perfect kind of goes wrong sort of trick. And I think that we sort of there was sort of so much of the stuff they do where the trick is not quite the trick that you think it is. And they're doing one thing, but actually they're doing another, and lots of stuff from their work kind of slotted in really nicely with Goes Wrong. And I thought that one was a particularly good fit, and such a fantastic trick. There's so many different elements and aspects to it, how it works, to make it convincing and magical. It's just an incredibly well thought through thing, and clearly like years and years of sort of thought and has gone into it, and it's been refined over a long time as well, which is really cool. So I thought that was just an absolutely ingenious illusion. So I thought that was a very cool thing.
I tell you another thing, without going into how magic works, because otherwise, you know, I'd have magicians trying to get into my apartment and silence me. But just a thing that I think that I learned from that is like some magic is so clever, and you know there's going on, but then sometimes one of the things I learned is just like it's such a huge confidence trick. Like some stuff is so brazen, and it's just about having the it's just like just how much of magic is sometimes about being confident, and I thought that was a very interesting thing. Just kind of how you know, yeah, just what you can get away with, I suppose. I thought was really interesting.
Yes, very good. A kite competition figures prominently in the Kite Runner. What contests did you? Oh, that's a
one question. It's quickly got away. That was a question. I was like, oh shit, I have no idea how to answer that.
I was a bit worried. I know the Kite Runner a bit, but not probably not well enough to take questions on it. Tell us about your non-mischief pursuits. What other creative projects are you working on?
I'm currently working on the Kite Runner, and
John, why don't you tell us a little bit about John's just recently written a book, which is absolutely brilliant. It's a very funny account of his time as co-chair of Aston United, which is a non-league football club in the UK, currently doing very well.
Which is a rarity
in the league, I believe, at the moment. But you've been co-chair there for a few years, and you wrote this book all about your time working with your dad as co-chair of your local football club from where you grew up.
Yeah. So for anyone who, thank you for setting me up there. For anyone who has seen Welcome to Wrexham, I kind of do that, but on a much smaller scale.
Without Ryan Reynolds, finances, or Hollywood connections.
I don't. I don't have those things. Although Ryan Reynolds started following me on Twitter/X or whatever it's called the other day. So I've got on his radar because there was a few articles where I said that I did what he's doing first. But no, it's a small football.
Keeping an eye on you, I think. Maybe.
Yeah. Just poking him, just hoping I get some interaction. The club that I'm the co-chair of is 2 leagues below. Well, now it's 3 leagues below Wrexham because Wrexham got promoted. But it's a local football club that my grandfather used to play for. And they hit a bit of financial difficulties about 4 or 5 years ago. And they did a tweet that kind of said, we need people to help us out. And I love football, or soccer, as you would call it here. It's maybe my greatest passion. And I'm awful at it, useless. But I've always wanted to be involved in some way. And I saw this as an opportunity to buy my way into a world that I have no business being part of. And I did it with my dad, who actually does have a history in football. And we run the club together. And we've been doing it for 4 years. And it's been a real roller coaster because obviously there's been a pandemic. We've had quite a lot of bad results. It's been a real baptism of fire in the sense of, I thought a lot of the skill set I have from theatre and kind of writing and producing, I thought it would all neatly fit into this other world, and it really doesn't. So I suppose it's a book all about making mistakes, kind of taking responsibility, but mainly it's just about laughing at me doing stuff that I thought would work, and it also explores my relationship with my dad a little bit, and it's really, really fun. And 20% of the of what I make from the book goes to the football club, so it goes back into kind of grassroots sport in my local area. So do get a copy. It's called Nowhere to Run, and you can buy it in the UK, but you can also get it now online at Barnes and Noble, and in the new year you can get it physically in Barnes and Noble as well. But what I should also do is say that Henry has also recently had his first book come out. It's a book called Mystery Agency, which is kind of spin off from these really cool board games that Hen's created. And it's a mystery book. It's full of amazing puzzles and riddles that you have to solve. Hen, why don't you explain a bit about that? It's amazing. It's also just won an award. It's been shortlisted for like the most beautiful book, I believe. And it's the design of it and the aesthetic of it is so super cool. So definitely get your hands on a physical copy of the book because it's a little work of art in itself.
Oh, well, thank you. So I started a company during lockdown called the Mystery Agency, and we do kind of like escape rooms in a box, if you like, escape room puzzles and that kind of thing. You receive a mystery in a box, so there's different ones. There's a pirate one, and you get a pirate chest, and it's locked, and you have to work out how to unlock it. And there's clues inside, and there's a whole mystery that you have to unravel. And then this is kind of the same thing, but in book form. So it's called Mystery Agency: The Museum Heist. And it's about a valuable gemstone that's been stolen from a London museum in the 1920s. And there's 8 suspects, and you've got to solve puzzles on every page and then work out who solved the crime. And I had a lot of fun putting it together. I worked with a graphic designer called Rebecca Pitt on it, who does all the Mystery Agency stuff, along with an amazing team of designers and publishers at Sphere, imprint of Little Brown, which is part of the Hachette book group, and they've been brilliant, and it's been a really fun experience. And the book it's out now in the UK, but it comes out on the 20th of February 2024 in the US, so you can look out for that next year.
I think you can get both on Amazon as well in the US if you wanted to get a physical copy now. Is that right?
It's on sale in the UK at the moment, so you can get it from Amazon, but you'd be getting shipping across the Atlantic. Whereas if you wait, well, you can do that if you want to, but if you wait until February 20th, then there'll be stock in the US.
Next question. What's the best deal you ever got at the TKTS booth, which recently celebrated its 50th anniversary? Well, happy anniversary.
Yes.
Yes.
Happy birthday. The best deal. Well, TKTS I think is brilliant because you get really, really good deals for lots of Broadway and off-Broadway shows. You can go down there, you can queue up. There's a big screen that tells you what's available for that day. You can only get tickets, I think, for that day or maybe for matinees the day after. And it's brilliant. You can get up to 50% off sometimes on shows. So quite often on our day off, I'll head down there and get tickets for a show. I got tickets. I got a ticket for Spamalot during this trip. I think it was about $80 or something, and I got a ticket for Some Like It Hot at the booth when we were here earlier this year with Peter Pan Goes Wrong. And so, yeah, it's a great way, affordable way of going to see big Broadway shows.
If you are somewhat indecisive like me when it comes to what to watch, I love it because you can just get in line. Loads of people will just come up to you in the line and tell you about all the shows. And by the time you get to the front, you've heard all about what's on and you can make your mind up. I really like it actually because it's a bit like the Edinburgh Festival, where there's kind of a centralized place where you can queue for all the tickets and you can kind of see what's on. So yeah, definitely do it, but definitely get your tickets for Mind Mangler if you're at the TKTS booth, or indeed using TDF. I should definitely do that. Say that now, otherwise our producer will be like, "What are you doing? Promoting other shows?" You can get tickets for Mind Mangler there as well.
Yeah, you absolutely can. And I think as well, worth saying as well that I think a great part of the TKTS booth is all the guys who are down there with the flyers, because they have loads of knowledge about shows. They see all the shows, and so you can talk to them if you kind of know what the kind of thing you want to see, but you're not exactly sure what would be the right show. You can talk to them, and they'll have really good recommendations. They're always really lovely. So this is our last question. So what other genres are you planning to give the Mischief Theatre treatment? Well, I don't know. I mean, we're always sort of developing new stuff. There's nothing announced yet, so we can't go into too much detail about what we're sort of developing at the moment and talking about our sort of next projects. But I don't know. I mean, I think in terms of goes wrong, I don't know. What should we say? That's a difficult question. What's the best answer to give, John?
We can't say. I mean, we loved doing the Goes Wrong show, and I think we're really keen to explore more screen opportunities, and that's something we're kind of talking about at the moment. But I think we've got to keep mum, to use a very old English expression. We can't say at the moment, but and lots of other stuff, lots of other fun comedy ideas, and as well, although this isn't new, I've really been trying to shine a light recently on some of the productions that are running all around the world at the moment. So there's been a huge effort to get Mischief shows on outside of the UK and the US in the last year. So there's been productions opened in Kiev the other day and in Krakow in Poland. Peter Pan is running in Mexico. It's opening in Latvia. So also kind of doing that and kind of bringing these productions that we really love outside into other languages and other cultures, which has been super cool and super interesting.
Absolutely, yes. So sorry to be a bit cagey on it, but I'm sure there will be, of course, more Mischief to come in the future. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. What a pleasure. It's been really fun to talk about Mischief and a few other bits and pieces as well. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you again in the future.
Come and see us in Mind Mangler. Thanks so much. Bye.
Bye.